Well, here we are, back again. It's the first night of the first end of the first day of the second leg of our Heart of Arabia expedition from Riyadh to Jeddah, and I'm at a complete loss, really, where to start, because today has been unbelievable in so many ways. It's dark now. I'm sheltering behind a small bush in some sand dunes just outside of Riyadh, the capital city of Saudi Arabia, and I'm just trying to make sense of everything that's happened today and the last few days, because for the last few days the team has reassembled in Riyadh. Anna's flown in from Switzerland, Reem in from Jeddah. Alan's done a fantastic job of getting all the provisions and the equipment ready for leg 2, and we've been helping him as much as we can, in addition to having multiple meetings with all sorts of stakeholders to get leg 2 on the move. But the icing on the cake, I guess, for the last 2 or 3 days has been the arrival into Riyadh of 3 members of the Philby family from Britain. And it was a wonderful evening a couple of nights ago when we all gathered together. The Saudi side of the Philby family and the English side of the Philby family joined together for the first time ever in a wonderful house, a wonderful dinner that Reem's family hosted for us in Philby Street, because so famous is the man that a street has been named after him in Riyadh. And it was just incredible to spend time with all of those lovely people and to be part of a really special event, and lovely to see lovely old artifacts of Philby's passport, for example, and perhaps the last photograph ever taken of him alive outside his beloved Athenaeum Club in Piccadilly Regent Street, I think probably at the age of 72, just before he was setting off to drive from London to Riyadh, which not many people do at the age of 72. And that photograph was taken 2 months before he passed away in Beirut. So we've had a wonderful time in Riyadh, and but really today has been all about getting going, getting moving, and it really wasn't difficult to choose the place to start the second leg, because in his book Heart of Arabia, Philby mentioned after they'd left Riyadh, a couple of hours really, because Riyadh, remember, in 1917 was only about 17,000 people, surrounded by a community surrounded by a mud brick wall. So they left the small community of Riyadh, and Riyadh today is about 7 million people 106 years later. So from 17,000 to 7 million. He rode across empty desert for a couple of hours before he discovered the old city, the old ruined city really of old Diriyah, which is very special in Saudi history. Today it's a World Heritage Site. It's probably the most important historical and political site in Saudi Arabia. It's the original home of the Saudi royal family, the country's first capital, but it was destroyed by the Ottoman Turks, but is being lovingly and painstakingly restored today in an extraordinary giga project, the scope of which is utterly enormous. It's beyond words, really. And so for us to choose the best place to start, it had to be Al Taref, this wonderful old mud brick community of such historical significance, now a World Heritage Site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And there are multiple agencies we need to thank for being able to start our journey there. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs here in Saudi Arabia and the Saudi Arabian Embassy in London, the Ministry of Culture here in Riyadh, the Heritage Commission here in Riyadh, the Saudi Geographical Society, the Dara Foundation. Many people have made today such a special day for us as the team. So it was really under leaden skies that we assembled this morning at 9 o'clock. We loaded the vehicles yesterday. We had a good night's sleep. tried to have a good night's sleep last night, but multiple things going through our minds. Have we remembered this? Have we got that? Will it be pouring with rain? Because it has been very cold and very wet here in Riyadh. Very, very heavy rains over the last few weeks, and I think several comments on social media posts that people expressed surprise that the words cold and wet could be, used or connected to Saudi Arabia. Well, Riyadh is 2,000 feet. Our journey started last November at sea level, Al Ugair on the east coast, where Philby landed in 1917, and it took us 14 days, and we eventually reached Riyadh, and Riyadh is on a high plateau, 2,000 feet altitude, and it's a long way from the sea. I think it's about 350 miles to the east and 750 miles to the west to reach the sea. So it's a long way inland, and so Riyadh has hot summers and cold winters, and everybody's wandering around huddled in blankets. It's a long way from the sea. I think the furthest you can get away from the sea in Britain is about 70 miles. I think that if I remember my pub quizzes correctly, it's a village somewhere in Derbyshire is the furthest point away from the sea in any direction, which is a humble 70 miles. The place which I googled today, furthest on this planet from the sea in any direction, is in Kyrgyzstan, 1,644 miles from the sea, and that's why they have absolutely bitter winters and pretty hot summers. Well, the same theory of continentality applies here in Saudi Arabia as well. So don't be surprised when you hear the words cold and wet connected to Saudi Arabia, because it definitely is quite chilly. The temperatures are destined to drop a lot over the next few days. In the next few days, wind's going to swing around from the north, we're told, so it's going to be down to single digits at night, and there's not too much rain on the horizon, thank goodness, according to the long-range forecast, but it has rained heavily. There's big lakes that we've been wandering and meandering around today, mud everywhere that we have to step around. But the joy of that is that the desert is going to turn green as we travel over the next 14 days around us. So that's going to be really, really lovely to see. So we drove to Al Tarif in this old community called Diriyah district this morning, and the idea was that a small group of people would assemble at 10 o'clock to wave us off. Well, it was more than a small group of people, lots of VIP dignitaries and some wonderful gifts presented to us by our incredibly generous hosts. Arabic coffee and dates and lovely food. A few speeches from the Ministry of Culture, from everyone at Diriyah Gate who are overseeing the restoration of this incredible part of Riyadh, and I was very lucky to be able to say a few thank yous on behalf of the expedition team. But really, today was all about getting moving. Once we'd been able to say cheerio and lots of media interviews with TV and newspapers, but Reem and I were able to start walking along the wadi called Wadi Hanifa that Philby followed as he left Riyadh in 1917. And Wadi Hanifa eventually leads to another series of wadis that take you to an extraordinary geological feature that runs through the middle of Saudi Arabia from north to south. It's really the backbone, the spine of Arabia, and it's called the Tuwaik Escarpment. And it's really a limestone ridge, a sheer-faced mountain. It's a physical barrier to anyone travelling through this country, especially in the old days before the roads came. The Tuwaik Escarpment is 600 metres high. It runs for 800 kilometres from north to south. And how did you get up and down? How did you get onto the top of that escarpment when you were travelling from Jeddah inland to Riyadh many years ago? It's because you would have travelled with camels. How would you have carried all of your belongings? So, hewn out of the rock of this escarpment at the most obvious points where it might be possible to do so, there are zigzag trails going up this escarpment from the flat plains below, and I'm now sitting at the bottom of that flat plain. It's dark, but if I look to the north, I can just about make out the line of the escarpment meeting the sky. So after we left Wadi Hanifa, we found ourselves at the top of the Tuwaiq escarpment. So a morning that had been shared with VIPs and dignitaries, we were now out of the city. Several eagles slowly drifting past, one of them chased by a peregrine falcon. Lots of swifts, these amazing birds whizzing by in the sky. A raven shouting cheerio as Reem and I got out the trekking poles, popped on our backpacks and started to follow this ancient camel trail that took us down and down these incredible limestone cliffs full of fossils, because this was unbelievably, even though it's almost 2,000 feet in the sky now, was once ancient seabed. Working our way down until we were able to meet Alan and the team who'd driven the support vehicles all the way around, a long detour, a couple of hours journey for them, as it was a couple of hours for us, but we were on foot, enjoying some beautiful weather, grey clouds, the odd bit of sunshine poking through, but a really fantastic start to our journey. A quote from his book, The Heart of Arabia, from Philby. He said, "We reached the edge of Wadi Hanifa, standing in front of the most noble monument in the whole of Saudi Arabia. This is a huge rock on top of a huge oval-shaped outcrop in the middle of Wadi Hanifa. The base of the rock resembles the terrace on which the city overlooks. There are wheat fields, and it is also surrounded by palm gardens and orchards, while the top of that rock is crowned by the ruined towers and palaces of Diriyah, which was once the proud capital of Saud the Great, emperor of the whole of Arabia. The ruins on the rock are known from the rest of Diriyah as Tarif, and that's exactly where we gathered to start today. And this is 1917, are completely deserted. The old buildings that were bombed as they are still stand, a pillar here, a wall there, a crumbling arch, an uninhabited passage, all form a prominent picture of the devastation that has occurred. Well, thanks to the Diriyah Gate project, that devastation is now being righted, and Diriyah now is going to evolve into an extraordinary place for the residents of Riyadh to spend their evenings, to connect to their heritage, to get exercise along the 130 or so kilometres of cycle tracks that are being built along the Wadi. It's an extraordinary vision and an amazing project with an amazing team of people that we were fortunate to meet today, making it happen. So we've had our food. We're just doing various jobs now. Anna's looking through the photographs. Reem's setting out the camera trap to see what animals we can find in the desert around us here. Alan's just doing the washing up. And once I finish this podcast, then I'm going to do a quick interview with the Saudi press agency who followed us out here, having a bit of an adventure themselves. The plan tomorrow, we don't need to move so early in the mornings nowadays, because on leg one it was got jolly hot in the middle of the day, so we wanted to get cracking at sunrise. Well, it's not going to be so hot now. The temperatures have dropped significantly whilst we've been away. So we'll probably leave. Sunrise, I think, is about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Reem and I will start walking shortly after. Then for several hours, the team will catch us up. We may have some camels tomorrow coming from the camel club, and we'll get on the camels and cover as much ground as we can before settling down for night 2 of what's going to be a fantastic 14-day journey to Jeddah. If today is anything to go by, it's going to be one great adventure following in the footsteps of Philby. We're camped probably a couple of kilometres away from where he camped. We can see the mountain that he refers to in his book, We couldn't quite get there to that point this afternoon because the area has since been fenced off, because as Riyadh has grown from 17,000 to 7 million, the outskirts of the city aren't too far away. There's small farms around us now, and a lot of fences that means that we can't quite travel with the freedom here that Philby did 106 years ago. But open country is just ahead, and we look forward to getting into that tomorrow.